1451, recognizing the effects of our thoughts and deeds on ourselves is part of striving towards Deen. لِيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. All this will take place in order that, according to the law of requital of Allah, every individual can be recompensed for the actions he has carried out. The reality is that his law does not delay even a moment in the accountability of deeds. It happens to be very swift. If we look at the Quran right from beginning to the end, in some ways Quran is referring to the law of requital. And over here, this verse, I thought we should go into some more aspects which have come before us in the light of going through these three surahs, which is Surah Yusuf and Surah Ra'd and Surah Ibraheem. Now, first is root of kasabat, which is used and normally translated as what people do, what are their deeds. And this is the root. The original meaning of this is to collect. After this, it also has the meaning of searching for means of sustenance and to acquire something and to find it. It also means to do or to accumulate imbalances. Raghav has noted that kasab is to do such work which man will do for the good of his own self and together with this for the benefit of others. So this is important, something on which I have put some emphasis. While iktasab is for doing such a deed in which man only keeps his own benefit before him. It's worth looking at this verse where both words kasab and iktasab have appeared. Another lugat has also noted that kasab is used for good and iktasab is for evil. And this is very interesting, that if we take these two meanings, of course the context is important in which these have appeared in the Quran. However, Allama Pervez has noted that this is not a rule, as it is also used contrary to this in the Quran. Some basic points. The Quran has drawn our attention towards the phenomenon of precise human accountability at numerous places and has declared that each self is accountable for its deeds. Wherever there are problems in the world, there is always a human hand behind it, and wherever the problems become resolved, it is due to human efforts. The existence and functioning of the law of requital invites us to think hard about the events occurring in the world at an individual and collective level, and to then analyze the psyche behind these events. And this is important for us, that wherever there are deeds, we should try to look at what made these people do like that, what was the thought behind it, and that helps to understand the Quran much better than just going over it mechanically. The Quran has made it very clear that Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim, that Allah does not change the state of a nation until they change what is within their own self, what is within their own cognition, how their psyche has been formed. And of course, psyche is not formed in one day. The human world is the product of their psyche. The Quran invites the psyche to change its own condition. Further reflections, the verse has two parts. Firstly, it says, لِيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ كُلَّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ, so that Allah with all his attributes ensures that each and every self is recompensed for its deeds or whatever it does in his or her life in this world. So important point over here is that we should keep it in mind that these verses like this are quoted few more as well. So they start with Allah, with all his attributes. That means when we are also looking at the world and we are looking at our own self, we should look at our own self in the light of those divine attributes which are applicable to our finite existence. If we become aware of the functioning of the law of requital later in our life, then we will have less time to benefit from this knowledge, assuming we act on it. Hence, it is important to make children aware of it as early as possible in their lives. So that is important, that if we have come to grips with this, that whatever we do has an effect on us, and it is going to have an effect the way we live our life, and how do we live this life at the time of death. So all these factors should be kept in mind, and this is how we should make our children aware as well. Secondly, if we take the meaning of kasabat as explained under its root as that deed which produces a good outcome, then an important issue arises here. And this is something very important for us to look into it. every nafs will be recompensed for its good deeds. So if we say kullu nafsin bima kasabat, those we will be recompensed for good deeds, and which takes into account the hereafter as well, i.e. it will leave that effect on the human self which will have the ability to rise and provide eminence to it. And that is important, that the deeds, the salih deeds, as the Quran says after Iman, that means that our potentials will keep coming out and we will be aware of those potentials being displayed in our life. Other deeds will cause the self to deteriorate and will have no weight in the divine balance. It's worth having a look on this verse which I've quoted over here. However, as far as this word is concerned, all deeds contribute to its shape and form. So if we are taking into account the hereafter, then this kasabat over here means far more than just keeping our life confined to this world only. The second part of the verse, Inna Allah Sariyul Hisab, points to the immediate imprint of our deed after it is performed. Sariyul Hisab means very quick, that Allah is very quick in accountability, which means that the moment a deed is committed, its effect at the same time simultaneously is imprinted on ourselves. This means that this system of accountability includes all the attributes of Allah for its functioning. See, Allah over here again, so all attributes will come into it. So in a system of Deen, all these divine attributes will be applicable, and those who are running the affairs of the system of Deen, they have to manifest all these attributes in their self. Hence, we need to endeavor to manifest as many of the divine attributes in ourselves as possible in order to fully grasp our psyche and its connection with our choices, decision making, and their outcomes. The point over here is that all these things we have to do it willingly. It is not something which is a burden on us. If it is considered as a burden and we take it as mechanically, then we are not going to benefit from it. Because self only benefits what it strives for willingly and happily. And the path which we have selected and we have made a choice is a path which is not going to end with our death. And that is something which should keep providing reassurance to each one of us. Few more verses on the subject. خلق الله السماوات والأرض بالحق ولتجزى كل نفس بما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون. And this verse has added 2 points in this, different from the previous one. First is خلق الله السماوات والأرض بالحق, that Allah again with all his attributes has created heaven and the earth as bilhaq. It is not for play and amusement. So that each nafs, exactly the same kasabat, whatever they do, they are recompensed, and system is so precise, so accurate that nobody can be treated unjustly, and that is how the system of Deen should be, that no one is treated unjustly in that system. Don't they know that Allah has created this whole universe as bilhaq, not meaningless and not for destructive effects? The aim of it is that the outcome of deeds of every person is established precisely and no injustice is done to anyone. This whole system of the universe is busy functioning so that every deed of every person produces the correct outcome. The next verse is very interesting and very powerful as well. وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. The Quran says, just see how we describe every kind of example in different ways, so that people don't get bored and they look at different aspects of what Quran is putting forward before us. And not only in physical sense, but cognitively as well, so that everything becomes clear from every aspect. But despite this, the state of man is such that he is often contentious. And why they're contentious? Because their inner self is not accepting what is in the Quran, because some of these things, they go against their inner desires, their own emotions, their own intellect, and that is why they become contentious. Otherwise, if we are willing and we are looking for guidance of the Quran, there is nothing contentious in that. And another verse is liman sha'a minkum an yataqaddama aw yata'akhkhara. It will help to see the verses and their background, the verses before it, the 36 verses before this 37th verse. Whoever wishes can go forward and whoever wishes can remain behind. So this word is created in a way that if we struggle hard and we only look for the benefits of this life, then we will get the benefits of this life, whatever the man-made system allows us. But if we strive hard on the path of Allah, then development of the self, whether one is poor or rich, it doesn't make any difference. Their development of the self is placed beyond the reach of man-devised systems. The only thing is that one should be looking for the guidance, and someone should have given the message as well. So ideally, we should give the message to whole of the world at some point in time. Kullu nafsin bima kasabat rahinatan, and again Quran has stated another fact: every self is tied in pledge for his very own deeds. That is why Quran says on the day of judgment, nobody will complain that injustice has been done to him or her. And next is another very powerful verse: Ya ayyuhallazina amanu taqullaha wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat ligad. And the Jamaat Mu'mineen is addressed over here. Always keep it in mind that to be muttaqi, and we know the term muttaqi includes everything as a movement. And again, Allah has come over here with all his attributes. That is, muttaqi is the one who is manifesting Allah's attributes within its finite limits. Means that every one of you should remain conscious of this fact about what he has sent forward for his tomorrow. See how high level of consciousness the Quran is asking us to have, so that we every moment, for example, even this presentation which we are sharing together, we should be continuously be aware what we are sharing and how it is going to impact on myself. And next week and the following week and the following week, we make this accountability as part of our consciousness. Awareness of human accountability increases the expanse of understanding of the human intellect. The first point is the higher awareness of our own accountability leads to making better choices and better risk management in our life. And it is a fact. We can try it, and I'm sure we have found that it does help. By being aware of the permanent values, we remind ourselves as and when we make important decisions about their applicable value. This is part of our learning process under the law of requital. For example, if we do not refer to the relevant permanent value but are aware of the law of requital, then if the choice we make leads to a bad outcome, then at least we will revisit the list of the permanent values and look up the value which we unwittingly violated. And this is, we know that if we are aware of the law of requital all the time and still we have made certain mistakes because of the wrong system around us and the wrong results show up at some later point, we will know why these effects or these outcomes have appeared before us, and we can mend our ways. The world around us is based on the functioning of the human intellect outside of the domain of Quranic guidance. Hence, as per the law of requital, fear and greed pervades the whole globe. For example, it is in the grip of fear of pandemics, vaccination programs, global warming, economic downturns with high inflationary trends, conflicts between different states, regime changes, injustices, etc. All this is creating its effects, some visible while others are not yet visible. How will the future world shape up in both the short term and the long term? And this is something which should be at the back of our mind all the time. We should keep a very close eye on the events which are taking place in the world. If every cause has an effect in our life, then we need to figure out how the system functions within us at a cognitive level. If we start to observe the effect left behind by each of our deliberate deeds, and also look at the deliberate thought occurring before that deed, then we will notice that it becomes part of our sense of being. The more we practice and see that what thought of ours led to a certain outcome and vice versa, then we will be developing ourselves on the right lines. If this deed leads to a positive outcome, then we will refer to it again in our future conduct. If it turns out to be an error of judgment, then we will try to avoid it. Next is the manifestation of the divine attributes after learning and accepting their importance leads to enhancing our awareness about the need for the system of Deen. And this is automatic. I think that when we are studying the functioning of the law of requital and of course law of respite in our life and in our individual as well as collective life, we will continuously be aware of the need for Deen. Because the problems which are being created around us, we reach a very high awareness level and we understand the problems the reasons behind these problems which we observe around us in the world. And in today's social media world, we are aware of these things on a continuous basis. It also provides strength to our iman of being on the straight path and motivates us to keep doing solid deeds. Our outlook becomes global rather than localized and confined to, for example, the geographical boundary of a nation state. So we have to start thinking, and we should be thinking at a global level, at a mankind level. Impediments on the path to understanding the functioning of human accountability. The assumption that our luck plays a role in our worldly success, this is supported by gambling and the chance factor in the functioning of the capitalist system. Because in that gambling and people who resort to gambling, they talk of luck playing a role, because if they make more money, they say it is a good luck. And if they lose money, which is mostly the case, then it is a bad luck. This is the product of the human inclination to make quick money and take as much as possible from others by making the least amount of effort. And that is the point we should keep it in mind, that why do we have this gambling system and stock markets, and the whole capital system is very, very speculative. Why? They have deliberately kept it like that because those who control the system and have inner information can benefit from it. Just see from the fluctuation of currencies how rich people become, those who have the inner information. Rich people seldom think of their accountability, hence are not likely to be attracted to the Quran. Religious belief systems prevent people from coming to the Quran. The accountability of the human self does not cross the minds and hearts of religious people and beliefs. Like, for example, some of the beliefs I've noted over here just for illustration, and for those who are going to go through this presentation on YouTube. God is mercy, God is love, God can be pleased through rituals. So all responsibilities these human beings are putting on God, and they have no responsibility. God is forgiving so that they can keep doing whatever they want. He accepts intercession, so that is the way human beings intercede and benefit and become rich on the back of poor people who do not understand the system of or the law of requital. All sins are forgiven by carrying out certain religious practices, a terrible concept, a terrible belief. And this belief is keeping nations backward. God accepts intercession of the messengers and elders, another belief which is so wrong and goes against the law of requital. The word is a sport created by God, and there are a number of other beliefs, and we can look at them by Googling it. The whole man-devised system of justice is based on physical evidence, and rarely few refer to inner accountability of the self. In such a system, there are numerous escape routes even for the criminals and sinners to avoid being caught in the first place. Even when people are caught, some can escape the consequences of this system based on man-made laws. Because the man-made system does not take into account the law of requital. It says that if there is an evidence against a person and which can be proved in the court of law, wrong or right, doesn't matter. And that is why they have defense lawyers and prosecution lawyers, so that both can make money out of the system. The definition of success in this system is without any reference to the life of the hereafter. It never comes into it. Even I've seen that the people who come to the Quran, they rarely, I've never seen, in fact, other than Allama Parvez, who talks about law of requital on a continuous basis in every book of his. If something never crosses our mind, how are we going to take it into account in the affairs of our life? It revolves around material conveniences and pleasures of life. It is so far removed from the pristine concept of human eminence as presented by the Quran that many people are not even willing to give it some thought. Even those who study the Quran with a religious background do not seem to pick up the accountability factor. And this is interesting that under secular system, people are very aware of the benefits which they are getting through the capitalist system, and they defend the capitalist system to its hilt so that they can get the maximum benefit, and they don't want the capitalist system to go away because they are the beneficiary of it. And those who are not the beneficiary of it are lost in religious belief system where these kind of false beliefs play effective role. So there is no resistance. And that is why in some cases, those who are in control of the capitalist system, particularly political people, they promote fundamentalism in various parts of the world, so that human beings do not even question their injustices, and they keep quiet over it and give a blank look when their attention is drawn towards this aspect. If any student of the Quran has failed to notice the existence of the law of requital, i.e. human accountability, then he or she will fail to come to terms with Deen and hence will never have a developed self. Because the self-development starts at that point where we become aware of the law of requital and start taking responsibility for our thoughts and deeds. And that is the point over here. In the world of science, despite the fact that cause and effect is accepted as a law, the minds of scientists and others do not go towards their own accountability at the level of the self. This is mainly due to not accepting that the human self has the potential to survive its physical death. Non-recognition and consequently non-acceptance of the self plays a major role in this regard. How will the law of requital and the law of respite shape the system of justice under Deen? I put down some thoughts over here because this is worth looking at, that what will be the outline of the system of Deen, where the law of requital will be known by everyone, including the people who run the affairs of the system of Deen. We know that the man-made system relies heavily on the availability of physical evidence for holding individuals responsible for their acts. The human self being inaccessible, the system does not take into account, though in some cases psychoanalysis is also carried out. And in modern court systems, some background checks are carried out and some psychiatrists are involved at times who look at the cause for committing a certain crime by the accused. The Quran has pointed out attention towards the human psyche being affected by your thoughts and deeds and has provided details of its functioning. For example, we have already discussed some of these aspects. Under Deen, both physical and cognitive aspects of the human self will be taken into account. This is absolutely essential because at a fundamental level, this will be taken into account. Those who are running the affairs, they will be fully aware of their own cognitive side, as well as the physical side is fairly easy and straightforward. What is important is the thought process working behind this system of Deen, and that has to be based on the values of the Quran and on divine attributes. And through education, training, and the self-development, people at all levels will be helped to transform their outlook towards the seriousness of life. The concept of Allah and the life of the hereafter will form an intrinsic part of this process. And this is possible because if we keep repeating and keep drawing attention of people towards this, particularly the younger lot, our youth and children, and once they become convinced of it and see it working in their life, see how much eminent self they will have then. And then we can see that in a very short period of time, how the system of Deen gets fully established. Recognition of all kinds of fear and huzn, and then efforts to gradually eliminate these, and the presentation of a tentative time scale. Time scale is very important. If there is no time scale in our life, then we go into despair, we become hopeless. So it is the responsibility of the system of Deen that they should give some kind of a time scale. Of course, then they can make adjustments by giving the reasons for the delay in case there is a delay or there is a modification, they must give. The system has to be absolutely transparent. Defining a time scale is important as it provides hope and progress can be measured in real time. The permanent value of Yamaruna bil Maruf wa Yanhauna anil Munkar is absolutely important because with this value, every individual becomes a model of functioning under the law of requital. He becomes the ear and eyes of the system. And everyone knows that I must not, even if there is some proclivity or tendency to do something wrong, the people around them should be able to draw their attention towards it. Of course, very kindly, not harshly, because in the system of Deen, everyone is very kind to each other. Will help lay the foundation of every aspect of the society. In the transitory stage, efforts will be directed to identifying the wrongs in society and inviting people to start thinking rationally about the problems in society. This will be an uphill task, very challenging task initially, and one has to sit down and figure it out. When human beings become convinced of some benefit and it is made easy to acquire, they remain peaceful even if they do not agree with the system of Deen. Accountability at an individual level will be propagated extensively, and gradually it will be made difficult for people to go against the permanent values. If people do go against them, they will be put through education courses. Of course, there will be some punishment, but that punishment will be more directed towards reformation, towards warning people to see that if they have some element, some iota of good left within them, where they realize their own errors of judgment and see that the system of Deen is inviting them towards their own good. The law of requital explained through the Quranic values never lets us go astray, but only if we decide to follow it. Over here, I've drawn a small schematic just to make my presentation a bit more interesting. Over here, we can see that there are two paths, and the sun is shining, and if there's a darkness, we won't know which path goes where. And this is what does. The Quran is a light which makes our life easier by telling us which choices will take us to success, as defined by the Quran, not the success defined by the man-devised systems. At every crossroad of life, the Quran provides us with the light to make our choice easy for us. It gets us out of the darknesses of life into its light, where we can differentiate between al-haq and batil. And over here, the paths are marked, and we can put any name. Left could be batil, right could be haq. And if we are standing over here, these are clearly defined paths. A well-lit, signposted crossroad guides us to the correct physical path. It economizes our effort and saves us time. We have seen that in countries where we go and the roads are not properly marked, we can get lost. And of course, in today's world, where we got a different navigation aid, we are not likely to go wrong. But previously, when these were not adequately marked, then we could get lost, or we had to ask people around us. We reach our intended destination successfully, hence we avoid wasting time. The Quran defines the destination for us so that at every crossroad of our journey in the world, we make the correct decision, and the outcome of our correct decision is checked through its criterion. The self so developed reaches a stage where the system of Deen starts to appear in the realm of possibility. And the next one is where somebody is standing over here and he's not sure which way to go. And I put down some comments over here. The essential part of this self-development is to signpost this path for others too, and not to keep it confined to our own individual self or a few selves. So important that we should come to the aid of this person, and most of the human beings haven't got the message of the Quran, the guidance of the Quran, so it is our responsibility to pass it on to as many as possible during our lifetime, because it helps to develop ourselves, and of course it helps others as well. At least they will have the choice of considering this guidance as well. Coming together by removing differences is part of this pursuit in our life. The more we signpost for others, the more we'll take a turn on this path and will realize the futility of their false pursuits in life. Any pursuit without the light of Wahi will end with death, i.e. nothing in the hereafter. This slide can also be used to illustrate the law of requital and the effect of our choices to our children. And with that, we come to the end of this presentation. Thanks for your time and for sharing it.